Okay, so if I bring up the idea of a $1 billion Powerball jackpot, what's the immediate effect?
Oh, it's instant fantasy.
Right. You immediately map out this golden future, the freedom, the end of all work. It's a huge psychological pull.
Absolutely.
But the source material you brought for this deep dive is so fascinating because it's not actually about how to win that money.
No, not at all. It uses the fantasy of the jackpot well, to shift how you approach possibility and action in your real life.
Exactly.
Our mission today is really to unpack this unique journey an author took. They saw everyone obsessing over the lottery, and they did something totally out of character.
They bought one ticket.
Exactly one ticket. And crucially, they didn't win, but they claimed they collected something far more valuable.
And we're going to decode that four-point method they used, right? Spec.
That's it, spec.
Yeah.
To understand that, really subtle difference between just waiting for something and acting like it's already happening.
And the setup is so compelling because there's almost no drama. This person who never plays the lottery buys a single ticket and then says the whole thing felt
Unemotional and routine.
yeah, unemotional, no fanfare, no running to look at yachts online. It was almost like a scientific experiment, not a desperate hope.
Right. And that feeling, that sort of boring neutrality, that's the key we need to unlock. Why was it so important that they didn't really care about winning?
It seems like it was designed to break that fantasy loop.
It is. And to really get it, we have to go to the source. A woman named Helen Hadsell.
Okay.
She became well-known decades ago, not for one big lucky win, but for winning contests over and over and over again. Her reputation was built on repetition, on a system.
Repetition is the opposite of luck. So what kind of track record are we talking about here? What did she win?
Well, her wins covered decades, and they were all over the place, which kind of proves the method works for anything. It started small, an outboard motor from a Coca-Cola promotion.
Okay, humble beginnings.
Very. Then a bicycle for her daughter. But then it scaled up. Big life-changing prizes.
Like what?
Fully paid trips to Europe, to Disneyland, to New York. It created this undeniable pattern. One win just led to another, and people had to stop calling it chance.
So if it wasn't luck, what was the common thread? What was her, I guess, her internal state?
Certainty. Just absolute certainty. She never hoped she would win. She assumed she would win.
So she acted like the outcome was always a done deal.
A done deal, and the timeline just had to catch up. She used to say, if you want something, simply assume it is yours and act accordingly.
Okay, let's dig into that act accordingly part because that's where this gets really practical. How far did she actually take that preparation?
She took it to a point most of us would call maybe reckless, or at least way too optimistic.
For instance,
When she wanted to win a house, she didn't just visualize it. She drove around, she picked the exact plot of land she wanted it built on, and sometimes even drew up the floor plans.
wow, okay.
And for the international trips, she would get passports and even the required immunizations before the winners were even announced.
I see the theory, but I have to ask about the cost. A non-refundable passport, immunizations. Isn't that just a really high-stakes bet? How does she justify that?
Her justification was that the expense closed a loop. It removed a barrier. By getting the passport, she eliminated all the practical friction between the win being announced and her actually leaving.
So if she won, she was ready to go immediately.
Immediately. The preparation wasn't a gamble. It was an investment in removing resistance. And if she didn't win, well, she had a passport, which is useful anyway. This whole system of removing obstacles led to her four-step framework. SPEC.
SPEC, right, it's a simple acronym. Let's break down what each letter actually stands for in her very non-mystical system.
For sure. So the S is for select. You choose exactly what you want with total clarity.
P is for project.
Right. And this is not just daydreaming. It's using your senses to imagine the process of getting it, the steps you'd be taking.
And E is for expect. Assume it's already yours. No doubt.
No emotional doubt. And that brings us to the most important step, the one that makes this different.
C for collect.
Exactly. Most people do the first three things: select, project, expect, and then they just sit back and wait.
Right, and they get anxious, they worry, did I do it right?
Hadsell insisted she never waited. Once the internal work was done, she immediately looked for the tangible final step: collect.
Okay, let's really focus on that, because if collect isn't the final win, what is it?
Collect is the first real-world action that shows up. It's the physical opening that confirms your internal decision has been made. It's almost never the big, glorious moment.
So it's small, it's subtle.
Very subtle. So it's not checking the winning numbers. In this case, it was just the act of buying the ticket when you never, ever do. That was the collect action.
So the break in the routine is the action.
Yes. The author of our source material was clear on that. Buying the ticket was collect. It was ordinary, undramatic, easy to dismiss. Other examples they gave were like taking an unexpected call about a new project you were thinking of, or buying the domain name for a business idea.
I wonder about that definition, though. How do you tell the difference between a real collect action and just, an impulse buy or following a random whim? Is there a marker?
The marker is that feeling of neutrality we talked about.
The unemotional and routine feeling.
Exactly. When the author bought the ticket, it didn't feel hopeful or anxious. It just felt normal. That neutrality is the signal. If you take an action and you're immediately filled with anxiety or desperate hope, it means the expect step isn't settled. The loop is still open.
So neutrality means your internal system isn't registering a lack or a need anymore. The action is just the next logical step.
It's just fulfilling a process that's already in motion. The point wasn't the jackpot. The point was seeing a door and walking through it without making a big story out of it.
And that idea, getting rid of the emotional attachment, that's huge, because the second you're attached, you get stuck in what the source calls unresolved attention.
That's it. That waiting, that tension, it's deeply uncomfortable for us. If you're only focused on the final prize, you're stuck in this high-tension, open-loop state. Your brain knows a task is unfinished, and it just eats up your mental energy.
So what are the classic symptoms of that, of this unresolved attention?
It's constant monitoring. You're always checking. Is it coming? Did they approve it? How long is this supposed to take? You're mentally hovering over something that's technically done, but is still demanding your resources.
The email example in the source is so perfect. I think everyone can relate to this.
It's universal. You send an important email, a job application, a big pitch. The action is done. It's sent. But what do?
You check your inbox every 5 minutes. You reread the sent message, picking apart your own words.
Right. You're already playing out conversations for replies you haven't even received yet. Your attention is completely hooked to an unknown outcome.
I think everyone listening just felt a little called out. That need for validation, for resolution. It's like a background app running on your brain, just slowing everything down.
And Hadsell's whole method is about closing that app, shutting down the process. Once you execute collect, that first small action, you close the loop and you go back to living your life. There's nothing to monitor.
The author said their anxiety just vanished after buying the ticket.
Because the mission was complete. They said, collect is done, everything after is optional. That mindset is incredibly freeing.
And this waiting, this monitoring, you see it most intensely when people are waiting for money to save them, which brings us back to the Powerball.
Right, and the big realization the author had. Money doesn't solve problems.
Evolves them.
It just evolves them. People think of money as this magic eraser for stress. But if your problem is, say, limited options, money solves that and immediately replaces it with a new set of high-stakes constraints.
What are those new constraints? What's the evolution?
You go from survival problems to strategic ones. It's no longer, how do I pay my rent? It's, how do I protect these assets from threats? The constraint shifts from poverty to managing complex trust, legal responsibility, consequence.
The problems get bigger.
They get more complicated with higher stakes.
So when a billion-dollar jackpot grabs our attention, maybe it's not really about wanting the cash, it's a signal.
It's a huge psychological signal. It means our subconscious is sensing a wider field of responsibility or choice that's trying to emerge. Money is just the universal symbol we latch onto for that feeling of expanded scope.
What I love about this source is how grounded it is. The author keeps saying nothing mystical happened, they didn't manifest anything, they just noticed something, acted, and moved on. The system shifted quietly and without drama.
And because it was quiet, the preparation had to be practical. That's where their application of collect gets really interesting. The moment they bought the ticket, they didn't start dreaming. They started managing the potential consequences.
Okay, let's dive into that. They created a Google Drive folder called Collect. What was actually in it?
The contents show an immediate focus on managing consequences, not an aspiration. There was a document outlining how to find an attorney who specializes in sudden wealth.
Smart.
And notes on identifying a short-term parking lot account. Just a simple, safe place to hold the funds while you figure out the complex stuff like trusts and the taxes.
That focus on a temporary holding account says everything. It anticipates the chaos and just builds a simple buffer.
And maybe the most important thing in that folder, the biggest takeaway for you listening, was a list of Trustworthiness controls.
Trustworthiness controls. Let's spend some time on that. What does that mean?
A trustworthiness control is basically a preset rule for managing the new relationships that come with a windfall. Because suddenly you need lawyers, accountants, advisors.
People you don't know and you have to trust them at your most vulnerable moment.
Precisely. So a control is a rule-based boundary. For example, one control they listed was any new professional relationship has a fixed, non-renewable term of 18 months with a mandatory third-party audit before renewal.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Another was requiring a clear exit ramp you can use at any time without penalty. These controls aren't about being cynical. They're about managing the human element of wealth. They turn soft ideas about trust into a hard, measurable system.
It anticipates the real friction, point bad advice, betrayal, and it systematizes your ability to pull the plug before real damage is done.
It's the ultimate expression of closing the loop.
Yeah.
The whole thing, buying the ticket, making the folder, writing the controls, it's not about chasing an outcome. It's about finalizing an intention and then having a calm, pre-built response ready for whatever happens next.
So what does this all mean for you? The key lesson from this deep dive is about shifting where you place the reward. The goal is to treat the action, that small collect step, as the outcome itself.
And doing that frees up all your attention from the anxiety of waiting. You stop checking the mailbox because the task is already done.
The decision has been executed, and the system for managing the consequences is already in place.
And if you take that core idea, that collect is done, everything after is optional, and you apply that to something you've been waiting for, what happens? What small, practical, undramatic action could you take today to just close the loop on that intention?
The real win is trading the tension of waiting for the peace of a closed loop. So ask yourself, what shifts when you start to see money or any big goal, not as a solution to your problems, but just as a symbol for a bigger field of responsibility? That shift from waiting for salvation to installing your own trustworthiness controls, that changes the whole game.